By 6:12 on a freezing Tuesday morning, Nathan Cole's name had vanished from the billion-dollar company he had spent 20 years building, and the only person who seemed unsurprised was his 13-year-old son. The glass doors of Cole Meridian Technologies opened for everyone except Nathan. His black access card flashed red against the scanner, and the security guard who had greeted him by name for 11 years suddenly stared at the floor. Beyond the security gates, employees stood in uneasy clusters beneath a giant digital screen displaying a message Nathan had never approved. Leadership transition effective immediately. His photograph had been removed. In its place was Victor Hale, Nathan's oldest friend, Cole Meridian's chief operating officer, and a man Nathan had once trusted to raise his son if anything ever happened to him. Nathan tried the card again. Read, "Mr. Cole," the guard said quietly, "I was instructed not to let you pass the lobby." "By whom?" Nathan asked, although he already knew. 17 stories above him, visible through the glass walls of the executive level, Victor entered Nathan's office, closed the door, and sat behind the desk Nathan had built from reclaimed wood when the company was still operating out of a rented warehouse. Nathan's phone began vibrating. His corporate email had been disabled. His authority over company bank accounts had been suspended. News alerts reported that Cole Meridian's board had accepted his resignation amid preliminary findings of serious financial misconduct and appointed Victor interim chief executive officer. Then an email appeared in Nathan's personal inbox, time-stamped 2:07 a.m. It was addressed to the board and written in his voice. It admitted to reckless financial decisions, accepted responsibility for an undisclosed liquidity crisis, and surrendered his position as chief executive officer. At the bottom was his digital signature. Nathan read it twice before the truth settled over him. He had not resigned. At 2:07 that morning, he had been asleep in the house where he had lived alone with his son since his wife, Emily, died 4 years earlier. A car horn sounded outside. Owen sat in the back seat of Nathan's SUV, still wearing the gray hoodie he had slept in. Nathan had brought him because the school district had announced a delayed opening after an ice storm, and he had expected to be inside the building for only a few minutes. Now Owen was staring through the window at Victor's face on the lobby screen. Nathan stepped outside, the wind cutting through his wool coat. "Dad, don't call him," Owen said as soon as Nathan opened the door. "I need to find out what happened." "You already know what happened." Owen's voice shook, but his eyes did not leave Victor's photograph. He did this. Nathan froze. Victor had stood beside him at Emily's funeral. He had spent Christmas mornings at their house, attended Owen's school events when Nathan was trapped in meetings, and carried a spare key to their home. "That's a serious accusation. I heard him last night." Nathan climbed into the SUV and shut the door against the wind. Owen unlocked his tablet, opened a 4-second cache preview from a deleted video, and pressed play. The screen showed Nathan's home office from the angle of the camera Owen was using for a science project. Victor moved through the background, opened the drawer where Nathan kept a backup authentication device, and raised a phone to his ear. By sunrise, Victor said, "Nathan won't own enough votes to stop us." Then the image broke into static. Nathan stared at the frozen frame. Before he could speak, another message arrived. Victor was requesting a private meeting at the Cole residence. He said he could still protect Nathan from criminal charges, but only if Nathan signed every document Victor brought with him. 12 hours earlier, Nathan had been standing in a conference room overlooking downtown Chicago, telling investors that Cole Meridian was about to enter the strongest year in its history. The company's routing software moved medical supplies, food, and industrial equipment through 42 states. More than 6,000 employees depended on it. Nathan had built the company from a single delivery algorithm and a promise to Emily that success would someday give their family more time together. Success had done the opposite. At 6:30 the previous evening, Owen had texted him a photograph of an empty chair in the school auditorium. Nathan had promised to attend a rehearsal for Owen's regional science presentation. He replied that he was sorry and would make it up to him. It was the same sentence he had sent 3 times that month. Victor noticed the message on Nathan's screen. "Go home," he said warmly. "I can finish the investor briefing." Nathan almost did, but the company's largest investor asked for revised projections, and Nathan stayed. Victor left first. At 8:15, he appeared at the Cole house, carrying pizza and acting like the dependable Uncle Owen had known all his life. He asked about Owen's science project, a camera system designed to measure heat loss around windows. He listened carefully, praised the work, and offered to help position the camera in Nathan's office, where the tall windows leaked cold air. Owen trusted him. While Owen adjusted sensors near the window, Victor moved behind the desk. He knew where Nathan kept the backup device, because Nathan had once authorized him to retrieve it during an emergency. He also knew the administrator password to Owen's camera, because he had helped the boy reset it months earlier. Owen did not notice Victor open a drawer. He noticed only the change in Victor's voice when a call came through. The warmth disappeared. Victor spoke quietly, apparently believing the camera recorded only temperature readings. By sunrise, Nathan won't own enough votes to stop us. Owen turned. Victor closed the drawer and smiled. Everything okay? Owen asked. Just business. After Victor left, Owen replayed the footage. He watched Victor remove the authentication device and slip it into his coat. Owen tried calling Nathan, but the call went to voicemail. Then the original video disappeared from the camera's local memory, leaving only the damaged 4-second preview cached on Owen's tablet. A notice said an administrator had deleted the file remotely. Owen became frightened, not because he fully understood what Victor was planning, but because Victor had looked directly at the camera before leaving, as though he knew Owen had seen him. When Nathan finally came home after midnight, Owen was still awake, but Nathan stopped only long enough to say they would talk in the morning. At 1:41 a.m., someone using Nathan's credentials activated a scheduled treasury transfer that moved company reserves into restricted accounts. At 1:48, the stolen device authorized an emergency bridge loan. At 2:07, Nathan's resignation email was sent. At 2:19, Evelyn circulated a pre-written emergency consent claiming Nathan had resigned and the company faced an immediate default. 5 directors signed electronically without being shown the full loan appendix, giving Victor temporary executive authority before dawn. By the time Nathan entered Owen's room at 5:30, control of the company was already gone. Now, inside the quiet SUV, Nathan watched the damaged preview again. Every instinct formed by 20 years of friendship fought against what his eyes were showing him. The surviving image doesn't clearly show him taking the device, Nathan said. Owen pulled his hands into his sleeves. You still don't believe me. I believe you saw something. I need to understand all of it. It means Uncle Victor lied to us. The word uncle made Nathan look away. He wanted another explanation. A technical error. A misunderstanding. Anything that would preserve the history he shared with Victor. But at exactly 8 a.m., Victor's car turned into the driveway of the Cole home. He arrived carrying a leather folder and wearing the expression of a man coming to comfort a grieving family. Victor placed the folder on the dining table where Emily had once helped Owen with homework. This has moved beyond a board dispute, he said. The Securities and Exchange Commission may become involved. The loan documents were approved under your credentials, Nathan, and the disputed voting authority appears tied to your family trust. Nathan stood across from him, and you became CEO before breakfast. Victor lowered his eyes with practiced sadness. The board needed continuity. I accepted because I'm trying to protect what we built. Owen remained near the stairs, listening. Victor opened the folder and slid a document forward. It was a temporary proxy agreement. If Nathan signed it, he would surrender his remaining voting authority for 90 days and agree not to challenge the board's investigation. In return, Victor promised to recommend that the company not refer the alleged misconduct to prosecutors unless legally required to do so. This is how I keep you out of court, Victor said. And how you keep the company, Nathan replied. Temporarily. You already took it temporarily. Victor's face hardened for less than a second, then softened again. You're exhausted. Sign today, and we can repair this quietly. Nathan reached for the pen. He was not thinking about his title. He was thinking about 6,000 employees, a collapsing share price, and Owen seeing his father's name connected to fraud on every business channel in the country. Then Owen stepped forward. Dad, don't. Victor turned slowly. This is an adult conversation. Then why is my mom's name on that paper? Nathan looked down. Attached to the final page was a purported amendment to the Cole family trust, dated 4 years earlier but uploaded the previous afternoon. It authorized the pledge of shares Emily had placed in trust for Owen and granted North Bank temporary voting rights if the loan covenant was triggered. The amendment carried an electronic image of Emily Cole's handwritten signature. Nathan's hand left the pen. Owen leaned closer to the page. She never signed her name like that. Victor gave a restrained laugh. It's a stored signature image. Mom always put a tiny dot inside the loop of the E. She said it was her secret mark. The signature had no dot. Victor closed the folder. You're letting a frightened child interpret legal records. Nathan pushed the folder back across the table. I'm letting my son stop me from signing something I haven't read carefully. Victor stood. The kindness vanished from his eyes. At 9 tomorrow morning, the board will release the full financial report. Once the public sees it, I may not be able to protect either of you. He walked to the door, then paused beside Owen. You should be careful about trusting damaged recordings. People can make them show almost anything. After he left, Nathan locked the door for the first time in years. He called Rachel Monroe, Cole Meridian's general counsel, but the call went directly to voicemail. 30 minutes later, Rachel responded through an encrypted messaging service and instructed him to meet her without company security or any electronic device connected to Cole Meridian. Nathan found her that afternoon in a nearly empty parking garage beneath a hospital on Chicago's north side. She had chosen the location because there were no Cole Meridian cameras nearby. Rachel stepped from her sedan holding a laptop and looking as though she had not slept. You shouldn't have contacted me through a normal line, she said. Victor is monitoring everyone connected to you. Nathan showed her the system log attached to the resignation email. Your credentials sent this. My credentials were cloned. That's what anyone would say. Rachel flinched, not with guilt but anger. She opened the laptop on the hood of her car and showed him a series of internal requests. 3 weeks earlier, Victor had ordered a replacement security token for the legal department, claiming Rachel's original device was malfunctioning. The replacement had never been delivered to her. It had been activated from Victor's executive network. Rachel then opened the bridge loan agreement authorized after midnight. Cole Meridian had borrowed $180 million from a private fund called North Bank Strategic Partners. Buried inside the agreement was a covenant stating that if the company's available cash reserves fell below a specific threshold, North Bank would gain temporary voting rights over a large block of shares pledged as collateral by the family trust. Our reserves didn't fall naturally, Rachel said. Someone activated a previously prepared transfer that moved $240 million into restricted accounts minutes before the loan was funded. The money never left Cole Meridian, but it stopped counting as available cash under the covenant. Who could authorize that? The CEO or the COO using the CEO's device and a pre-approved Treasury instruction? Nathan looked at Owen, who sat inside the SUV watching them through the windshield. Rachel followed his gaze. Your son was right about Victor being involved. But there's more. The purported family trust amendment was filed through my account, and the system says I electronically certified it. Did you? Emily was my friend. I would never touch her trust without telling you. Rachel enlarged a line of metadata buried in the file history. It showed that the document had been uploaded from an internet connection registered to Nathan's home. Victor had not merely stolen corporate authority. He had used Nathan's house, his dead wife's signature, and his son's inheritance to make the takeover appear legal. Nathan felt something inside him shift. Until that moment, part of him had still hoped Victor had been forced into the situation or had accepted the CEO role to stabilize the company. That hope disappeared. How do we prove it? He asked. Rachel's answer came quietly. We find the original trust amendment before Victor does. Owen went pale. Weeks earlier, Victor had picked him up after robotics club because Nathan was delayed at work. During the drive, Victor had asked casual questions about records Emily had left behind. He said Nathan was under pressure and might lose control of the company unless the family located documents Emily had stored before her death. Owen wanted to help. He told Victor there was a digital archive connected to a safe deposit box, but he did not know the password. Victor asked whether Emily had left Owen any clues. Owen said no and changed the subject. He never told Nathan because Victor made him promise not to add more stress to his father's life. "I thought he was trying to help you," Owen said later, sitting at the kitchen counter while sleet tapped against the windows. "When I realized he wasn't, I thought you'd be angry because I told him about the box." Nathan felt the weight of every late meeting, every missed dinner, and every time Owen had decided not to call because his father was busy. Victor had not broken through a computer firewall. He had entered through the silence Nathan had allowed to grow between himself and his son. "I'm not angry with you," Nathan said. "I'm angry that you believed you had to handle it alone." Owen stared at the countertop. "I usually do." The words hurt more than losing the company. Rachel traced the safe deposit box to a bank 40 miles west of Chicago. Emily had opened it 6 months before her illness became terminal. The original trust amendment inside would show that Emily had permanently barred Owen's shares from being sold, transferred, or pledged before his 25th birthday. At 7:30 the next morning, Nathan, Owen, and Rachel entered the bank with Nathan's identification, Emily's death certificate, a certified copy of the trust, and written confirmation from the bank's legal department that Nathan remained the surviving trustee. The branch manager led them into the vault, inserted the bank's guard key, and helped Nathan open box 814. Inside were Emily's handwritten letters to Owen, a photograph of the three of them at Lake Geneva, and an empty blue folder labeled Cole Meridian Voting Trust. The original amendment was gone. The access record showed that the box had been opened 4 days earlier by an attorney presenting a forged limited power of attorney, a counterfeit copy of Nathan's identification, and an electronic certification created with Rachel's cloned credentials. The attorney's name was unfamiliar, but Rachel traced his payment to one of Northbank's shell companies. Victor had reached the evidence before them. At 9:03 a.m., exactly as Victor had threatened, Cole Meridian released a selective financial summary that made Nathan appear personally responsible for the liquidity crisis. The company's share price fell again, and reporters gathered outside Nathan's home. Nathan picked up the family photograph. Emily was smiling into the wind, one hand holding Owen's and the other gripping Nathan's coat. On the back, she had written, "What we protect together cannot be taken from us." Owen looked at the empty folder. "So he wins." "Not yet," Rachel said. Her laptop chimed. She had been tracing Northbank strategic partners through corporate filings. 3 shell companies led to a holding company controlled by Victor's brother-in-law. Another document showed that Northbank had already negotiated the sale of Cole Meridian's most valuable patents to an overseas logistics conglomerate for $620 million. Because the patents represented substantially all of Cole Meridian's core operating assets, the transaction required shareholder approval. The sale would repay the bridge loan, reward Victor's investors, and leave Cole Meridian without the technology that supported most of its revenue. The company would collapse within months. Thousands of employees would lose their jobs, while workers whose retirement accounts held Cole Meridian shares would see years of savings collapse. Victor had never wanted to lead Nathan's company. He wanted to cut it apart and sell the pieces. The shareholder meeting was scheduled for 2 o'clock the following afternoon. They had less than 31 hours. Rachel contacted Claire Dawson, a former controller who had resigned after questioning payments authorized by Victor. Claire had kept paper copies of several transaction reports because she feared the digital records would be altered. Those reports connected Victor to Northbank, but they did not prove he had forged Nathan's resignation or stolen the trust authority. Owen returned to his science project, searching for any fragment of the deleted recording. The camera application showed no local file, but a small cloud icon appeared beside the project name. His school required every regional science entry to back up automatically to the district server so teachers could verify that students had completed their own work. Owen entered his school credentials. A complete video appeared. This version began 11 minutes earlier and continued after the file on his tablet had turned to static. Victor opened the drawer, removed the authentication device, and made 2 phone calls. During the second call, he said, "Evelyn only has to keep the board quiet for 1 night. Once Northbank has the votes, she can tell herself she saved the company." Evelyn Brooks, the chair of the board, had publicly claimed she knew nothing about the emergency loan until after it was approved. Nathan called her. At first, she refused to meet. Then Rachel sent her one still image from the video. Evelyn agreed to see them at a closed restaurant near O'Hare International Airport. She arrived wearing dark glasses despite the cloudy afternoon. Victor has documents from 5 years ago, she said before sitting down. During one of Cole Meridian's financial crises, Evelyn had delayed reporting a major liability for 1 quarter to prevent lenders from withdrawing. Nathan had never known. The company recovered, and the report was later corrected, but the original delay could still expose Evelyn to civil penalties and possible criminal scrutiny. Victor found the internal correspondence and threatened to release it unless she approved the emergency resolutions. "You let him use my wife's trust," Nathan said. Evelyn's composure cracked. "He told me the trust documents were legitimate. By the time I understood what he had done, the resolutions had already passed. Then tell the board. And destroy my life? You helped him put 6,000 other lives at risk." Evelyn stood to leave. Owen, who had been listening from a nearby booth, stepped into view. "He used something you were ashamed of because he knew you would stay quiet. He tried that with me too." Evelyn looked at the 13-year-old boy and then at the floor. She still would not promise to testify. Rachel warned that without Evelyn, Victor could dismiss the video as a private conversation taken out of context. They needed direct proof that he was still controlling the scheme. Claire proposed a lawful trap. Rachel created a secure data room under a newly registered litigation account and uploaded a decoy scan-labeled Original Cole Trust Amendment, certified copy. She then sent a confidential notice to a limited group of board members stating that the original document had been recovered and would be presented before the shareholder meeting. Each recipient received a uniquely watermarked copy. If Victor accessed or attempted to delete the file through unauthorized credentials, an independent forensic service would record the action. At 11:43 that night, someone logged in using the cloned legal token. The user opened the decoy file, downloaded it, attempted to erase the access history, and sent an encrypted message to North Bank. Close the proxy window early. Certify the written consent before Cole obtains an injunction. The watermark identified the leaked notice as Evelyn's copy. For one terrible moment, Nathan believed Evelyn had warned Victor. Then the forensic service traced the login to Victor's assigned laptop, his private office network connection, and the serial number of the clone token. Victor had been monitoring Evelyn's board email, just as he had monitored Nathan and Rachel. The trap proved unauthorized access, attempted destruction of evidence, and coordination with North Bank. It still did not stop the vote. At 6:20 the next morning, Victor announced that North Bank claimed to control enough proxies to approve the patent sale by written shareholder consent. He intended to certify and file that consent at 8 o'clock, hours before the scheduled shareholder meeting. Rachel had filed an emergency motion before dawn, but the duty judge had not yet ruled. Nathan had spent years believing control came from being the first person in the room with the final answer. Now he had no court order, no executive title, and no guarantee Evelyn would speak. He had only a frightened son, a small group of people Victor had underestimated, and a chain of evidence they would have one chance to present. "You don't have to come," Nathan told Owen as they drove toward headquarters. "Yes, I do. Victor may say things about me, about your mother." Owen looked through the windshield at the tower appearing between the buildings. He's been counting on everyone being too scared to say what they know. At 7:58, Nathan approached the same glass doors that had rejected him 2 mornings earlier. His card still flashed red. This time, Rachel opened the door from inside. She had been allowed into the building as general counsel for the emergency certification session, although Victor had restricted her access to most corporate systems. The auditorium was already full of directors, major investors, attorneys, and employees watching through a company broadcast. Victor stood beneath a screen showing charts of falling cash reserves and alleged executive misconduct. He wore a dark suit and the calm expression of a leader rescuing a company from its reckless founder. "For the protection of our employees and shareholders," he announced, We must certify the written consent authorizing the transfer of selected intellectual property to North Bank strategic partner. The phrase selected intellectual property disguised the sale of nearly every patent Cole Meridian needed to survive. Nathan entered from the rear. The room shifted with whispers. Victor paused, then smiled. Nathan, this session is restricted. So is my home office, Nathan replied. That didn't stop you. When Victor objected to Owen's presence, several directors ruled that the boy could remain because he was the source and witness of the original recording. Rachel connected her laptop to the presentation system. Victor ordered security to remove them, but several directors and institutional investors demanded to see the evidence before any written consent was certified. Rachel began with the cloned legal token, then showed the creation path of Nathan's false resignation. Claire presented the restricted account transfers that manufactured the liquidity crisis. An independent forensic examiner appeared by video and verified Victor's unauthorized entry into the decoy data room. Nathan played Owen's original recording, including the line about Evelyn keeping the board quiet. Victor did not panic. He attacked. He claimed Rachel had altered records to protect Nathan. He called Claire a resentful former employee. He said the video had been manipulated by a child desperate to save his father. A 13-year-old with editing software can manufacture almost anything, Victor told the room. Owen's face tightened. Nathan stepped in front of him. My son is not our forensic evidence. Your access logs are. Your token serial number is. Your transfers to North Bank are. The video only tells us when he first saw what the rest of us refused to see. Victor turned toward Owen. You don't understand this company. Owen stood, his hands trembling at his sides. No, I don't understand all of it. But I understand that you came into our house, smiled at me, and stole from my dad while you thought I wasn't watching. The room became still, and I understand that honest people don't delete videos, forge dead people's names, or rush a vote before a judge can see the evidence. Victor opened his mouth, but another voice interrupted him. Evelyn Brooks rose from the front row. She removed her board badge and placed it on the table. He threatened me, she said, and I helped him. She admitted approving the emergency resolutions, hiding the full loan terms from other directors, and allowing Victor to use her authority. She also confirmed that the board had never received Nathan's resignation directly from him. The attorney for Cole Meridian's largest institutional investor requested an immediate suspension of the consent certification. Another major shareholder formally moved that Victor be suspended pending an independent investigation. Evelyn seconded the motion. With a majority of the directors present supporting it, Victor was stripped of his interim authority before he could stop the presentation. Then Rachel's phone rang. The duty judge had signed a temporary restraining order freezing the patent transfer, North Bank's voting rights, and any action based on the disputed trust amendment. For the first time, Victor's confidence broke. He gathered his papers, but two corporate security officers stepped into the aisle after the board instructed them to escort him from the premises. They did not arrest him. They removed him from the building while federal and state authorities were contacted and the evidence was preserved. As he passed Nathan, Victor stopped. I built half of this company, he said bitterly. You took the credit because your name was on the door. Nathan looked at the screen where Victor's financial transfers were still displayed. You may have helped build it. That never gave you the right to burn it down. By noon, the board had voided Nathan's resignation, suspended all performance under the North Bank agreement, and authorized Rachel to seek its formal rescission. The board also agreed to recognize the family trust's original voting rights while the court reviewed the forged amendment. The directors offered Nathan his position back immediately. Everyone expected him to walk to the stage and reclaim the title. Instead, he remained beside Owen. I'll return under certain conditions, Nathan said. He required an independent board committee, separate approval for major transfers, direct protection for whistleblowers, and an external audit of every executive account, including his own. Victor did this, Nathan told them, but I built a system where one man's loyalty mattered more than oversight. That was my failure. Over the following months, assets connected to the North Bank scheme were frozen. Victor faced charges related to fraud, identity misuse, document forgery, obstruction, and market manipulation. Evelyn resigned and cooperated with investigators. Claire returned to lead a new internal controls division. Rachel became chief legal officer with authority independent of the CEO. The patent sale was canceled. Employee retirement savings tied to Cole Meridian stock were protected from the losses Victor's scheme would have caused, and no major layoffs were required. Nathan returned to Cole Meridian, but he no longer slept in the office or measured fatherhood by the size of the future he could purchase for Owen. 3 weeks after the shareholder confrontation, Cedar Ridge Middle School held its regional science exhibition. Nathan arrived 40 minutes early. He sat in the front row wearing no tie, with his phone powered off and locked in the glove compartment of his SUV. Owen stood beside his heat loss camera, explaining how small gaps around a window could drain warmth from an entire house. Halfway through the presentation, he glanced toward the chair where his father had failed to appear weeks earlier. Nathan was there. He stayed through every question, every demonstration, and the announcement that Owen had won second place. Outside the auditorium, Owen handed him the small silver medal. "You don't have to give that to me," Nathan said. "I'm not giving it to you. I just wanted you to hold it." Nathan closed his fingers around the medal. On the morning he was removed from Cole Meridian, he had believed he had lost everything overnight. The truth was harder to accept. He had been losing his son slowly, one missed promise at a time, while convincing himself that the company was the inheritance that mattered. Nathan finally understood what Owen's science project had been measuring all along. A gap too small to notice could drain the warmth from an entire house and from a family. Owen had not simply identified the man who betrayed him. He had shown Nathan which betrayal still had time to be repaired. Nathan returned the medal and placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "Dinner anywhere you want," he said. Owen gave him a cautious smile. "Are you going to get called into work?" "Probably." And Nathan looked back at the empty auditorium, then at the boy who had stood against a man powerful adults had been afraid to confront. "And they can wait."